got Jason Bigler from Google. Jason, thanks for coming in today. Jason is the Chief Product Officer at Google EMEA. He's the guy with all the ideas and makes it happen. All right, Jason.
Without the officer part.
Okay. So today we're talking about Google's Open Bidder. There's been a couple of announcements recently, and we want to brought Jason in today to kind of talk through what exactly it is and who will use it and why it's such an important part of the Google ecosystem. So Jason, just explain what Open Bidder is briefly, and then we'll go into the specifics.
Sure. Yeah. So Open Bidder is really when you think about your alternatives as a company that wants to get into RTV and programmatic buying, you've had two options, right? You can partner up with a vendor and operate through them, or you could build your own.
Yeah.
And building your own isn't hard, or is very hard actually. It's something that takes a lot of resource, takes a lot of expertise, takes a lot of capital, quite frankly, to scale. And you think about what you end up having to build and all the infrastructure behind that to handle hundreds of thousands of queries per second. Open Bidder sort of sits in the middle of that. What we aim to do with it is to provide a developer's toolkit so that you can use Google's infrastructure and scale, but still customize and build your own bidder with its own secret sauce, with your own algorithms. So you basically take the scaling impact or scaling costs out of the way for a developer, for an organization, a buying organization. Just let them focus on the bidder. Let them focus on the brains of it, as opposed to how do I scale it? How do I handle 200,000 queries per second? How do I answer a bid request in less time than it took you just to blink?
Okay. So effectively, you're building the infrastructure and how to sort of scale that and keep up to date with the change in the system. And then basically the company comes in and customizes the algorithm and be able to trade the way it wants to.
That's exactly right. I mean, it sits on top of the Google infrastructure, the Google Compute Engine. And so that includes the cloud, the App Engine, BigQuery, our own prediction API. So you can utilize all of those infrastructural components to develop your own bidder.
Okay.
And the beauty of that is that it's Google scale.
Okay.
Right?
Can you map it out for us, basically?
Yeah. So I guess let's talk about this from the standpoint of an actual bid request.
Yeah.
Right. So we'll use AdX as an example, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be AdX. Could be any ad exchange. So you kind of have your request that goes over here to Open Bidder. This is the Open Bidder server. And all this does is really, I mean, what happens here is this request comes in, it gets transformed into a protobuffer that is really just a fancy way of saying this is how we take structured data and organize it in a way for this environment to make some sense of. And so down here then, your request goes to what we might call these user-defined blocks, right? So this, best way to describe this is maybe like your secret sauce, right? So you can do a couple things here. You can write inputs to logs. You can extract from your logs to actually influence what the actual bidding decision should be. This could be a series of components. There's a lot of technology behind this, and this is like where developers live and thrive.
Yeah.
But effectively, you can sort of chain these all together, and this is really all kind of like, if I did draw this, right? All this is the Google Computing Engine. Those components I talked about, BigQuery, App Engine, etc., where all of this lives. But this is where the developers can actually construct their secret sauce. And once the request comes down through the pipeline here, variables are fed into it. Ultimately, comes back with a response, goes back out to AdX, and then whether or not you win the bid or not, right, ultimately gets decided out here. And then if you do, the nice thing is it also supports, in addition to bidding, it'll support impression and click callback. So if you do win, and what price did you win? It's probably different than the price you actually bid at, since it's a second price auction. We support cookie matching out of the box as well. So for marketing, that's super important. But you figure this area down here is where the developers are really playing. All this is a server environment where people can host their virtual machines for their actual bidders. on the Google Cloud, and I guess the really cool part is that because of the GCE components here, latency is a huge issue in the RTB environment, and at peak hours we've discovered that this is 20% more efficient. It's actually 20% less latency just by operating your bidder in this ecosystem. So that matters, right? That's 100 milliseconds is that quick, and if you have 20% more of your time to do more calculations down here, that's really meaningful.
So who are you aiming this at? I mean, this seems to be like the vanguard of the trading community. I mean, is there specific trading desks or networks that you're looking at to use this tool? Or I mean,
yeah, I mean, I think if you look out there, I mean, the folks that have invested in the technical expertise to be able to write these components could be anybody, quite frankly. I mean, the ad networks have obviously invested heavily here. I mean, the HTC trading desk less so, but I would say that this actually lets them get into the game without having to do all the infrastructure development, right? I mean, your expertise down here are some programmers and some statisticians, right, to actually write some algorithms. Not having to worry about how many machines do you have to buy and how many data centers do you have to deploy, right? Those are totally different competencies that don't necessarily sit in an agency. But this type of talent can be hired internally, and we would expect some agency trading desks who are looking to differentiate to actually invest here.
So basically someone who could write some clever algos, or might be like maybe someone in the travel sector looking for a specific
could be advertisers directly, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And is there plans to sort of open it up and allow people to plug in other applications? Like, so, you know, a lot of competitors have open APIs and they're allowing people to build on top as well and plug that in. Is this a plan for this as well, or?
Well, for an example, right, I mentioned the prediction API that's part of GCE. Yeah, effectively, like a development community around GCE could actually write their own prediction API. So if they think they can do a better job than we can, for example, right, like that's something they can actually go and do. Okay. And actually that benefits the entire ecosystem, certainly, and themselves for writing it. But yeah, I mean, it's by definition meant to be a very open system. This is an open source developer's toolkit, so anybody can use it. When you render it, when you actually want to utilize it, it has an enterprise pricing model associated with it. But the nice thing is you're not paying per hour like a lot of competitive solutions, you're actually paying per minute. So over the course of an hour, if you're only hitting it for 10 minutes, that's all you pay for, as opposed to the whole hour, which is nice as well.
So is this available at the minute to use, or is it are you still in beta? Or
we're in beta
right,
still,
okay.
yeah. Right. So we had an alpha that led up to the Google I/O announcement, but we actually recently opened it up to a couple more customers for beta, and we'll continue to grow that beta. I think what we want to make it easy to develop in this environment, and that's what the beta customers are helping us to.
Because it's quite sophisticated. It's the next sort of step along from just using an off-the-shelf solution. You know, you're talking about actually customization here for the bigger market.
Well, and like, you know, a year and a half ago when we talked, when I came over here, I mean, you had asked me, like, are you going to have a different approach for different markets in different regions, especially here in Europe? I mean, this is something that obviously this is going to be a global product, rollout, global product, but I would argue certain markets here in Europe are really going to jump into this because they inherently want to customize and differentiate, but they don't want to have to worry about data centers and machines, networks.
I mean, focus on this. I mean, do you think this is the next step in the evolution of the real-time space, effectively the customization of the trading process?
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, I mean, if all things being equal, there's really three dimensions to it, right? There's how quickly you can react. There's the data you bring to the reaction, right? And then your algorithms. Yeah. Like those are kind of like the three primary dimensions, and I mean, to those, I mean, the speed aspect is sort of what we're offering here overall in this ecosystem. But the data and the algos are where you differentiate. Yeah. You know, and I think I think in a world where programmatic is becoming more and more predominant, is going to be the majority of ad spend out there at some point in time. Your ability to, it's going to be really important.
And differentiate you from your competitors.
That's right.
Jason, thanks very much for that walkthrough Open Bidder. I'm sure we'll learn more about it in the next couple of weeks and the next couple of months. Jason, thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks, Kieran.
That was Trader Talk TV. Thank you.